the developments that have been happening in the news since the sitting of council on Tuesday, and the leadership is here to present you guys with the way forward for our work in Tshwane. It's very good to be back, see some familiar faces from my time in Tshwane. Good to see you again. I will now hand over to the National Chairperson, Michael Beaumont, to begin proceedings for this morning.
All right, thank you very much, Sam, and greetings to residents of Tshwane and South Africa who are following these proceedings from wherever they may be, and greetings to members of the media. It is regrettable that we are here today, and in our opinion entirely avoidable, because what we would really like to talk about with multi-party coalition is service delivery and the needs of residents and how that is being addressed, because that is ultimately, and what is ultimately, should be the agenda of multi-party coalition. But a set of events have taken place, and a very deliberate effort has taken place to mischaracterize those events and mischaracterize ActionSA's performance within those events, that it has become entirely necessary to set that record straight, which I will now proceed to do. We will then have my colleague and the Gauteng Provincial Chairperson, Bongani Baloyi, who will provide more information about why ActionSA took the steps we did in respect of this illegal procurement process. And then we will talk a little bit about what is going on in the City of Tshwane. And finally, I will communicate how ActionSA will be proceeding in respect of this matter. And I think the regret that I referred to earlier must start with the fact that this took place in such a public manner. Multi-party coalition is a very important project for South Africans. Most South Africans recognize that in 2024, it will be multi-party coalition that takes over the running of our country and the running of provinces across South Africa. And that is why it is so incredibly important that people see multi-party coalition that demonstrates that they can work together and that they can build confidence and they can deliver successfully to the people of municipalities, to provide confidence that the same can take place from a provincial and a national standpoint. What took place on Tuesday put a dent in the image of that project, and it is something that we regret had to take place from such a public standpoint. What is very important to point out is how that came to be, because on the council meeting on the 28th of July, a report was brought to the Municipal Council in the City of Tshwane. ActionSA as a coalition partner was given the grand total of 2 days' notice of that particular report, despite the fact that that report had massive consequences for the City of Tshwane. It involved a 26 billion rand unsolicited bid that bound the city into contracts for 30 years, leasing municipal infrastructure, and had profound legal ramifications. This is not something that you consult with over 2 days if you take your coalition partners seriously. It is something that you workshop and you listen to concerns and you develop a response that is born of all political parties. At that meeting, ActionSA lodged a dispute to say this is way too significant a decision for us to be able to make that decision now. And in terms of our signed multi-party coalition agreement, section 6.7.1, any dispute lodged by a party within the coalition results in that item being taken off the council agenda and sets in place a dispute resolution mechanism to solve the problem. That is how our multi-party coalition agreement is written, and every leader of the political parties in the coalition signed that agreement. It wasn't taken off the agenda. It remained on the council agenda of the 28th, and it required intervention by the Freedom Front Plus on ActionSA's behalf to get the DA to remove that item on the council agenda on the 28th of July. ActionSA wrote a complaint to the national structures of the coalition on the 2nd of August, in which we raised this particular issue to say that when we lodge a dispute, the item must be removed from the agenda and we cannot be held over a barrel on such important decision-making. The coalition heard that dispute, and a national coalition meeting was busy being organized in which to address that complaint. While that date was busy being organised, Mayor Randall Williams organises a special council meeting on the 16th of August, Tuesday, that has just gone, with this once again on the coalition agenda, despite the fact that the dispute remains unresolved. We wrote to the national coalition structures on Sunday, the 14th of August, and we said this cannot continue in this manner, that Mayor Williams is acting in breach of the coalition agreement and, in our opinion, of municipal legislation that governs how unsolicited bids and procurement takes place in municipalities. We indicated in that letter that ActionSA cannot be involved in coalitions in which we displace the ANC and proceed to behave like the ANC. And we gave the DA until 5 p.m. on Monday, the 15th of August, to provide evidence that that had been removed from the council agenda. We had no response, not even an acknowledgement of receipt. On Tuesday, the 16th, we proceeded to communicate our position publicly, that we could not support this item, and we did so publicly so that people could understand why we acted the way we did. And for that, we have received a litany of public attacks made against ActionSA. We have been told that we're not a dependable coalition partner by the DA. We have even been told that we are in favour of load shedding. And this is how ridiculous this debate has actually become. But we need to be fundamentally clear about something. Being a coalition partner doesn't mean you do what you're told to do. Being a coalition partner doesn't mean that you approve things even when you believe they are wrong. And being a coalition partner means that sometimes you need to say within your coalition agreement that this is a problem and it cannot continue in this particular manner. And there is a word that I would like to share to many South Africans who are disappointed about how these events took place. And that is that we share that disappointment. This should never have happened this way. This should have been dealt with as per our coalition agreement. And had that been the case, and had the concerns of ActionSA, which you will hear in a moment from our colleague Bongani Baloyi, had those concerns been listened to, we would have had a much better outcome for the residents of Tshwane. But what I will say to comfort those who are disappointed by the events on Tuesday is the following. Thank God that there is coalition in the City of Tshwane. Because if the DA had held a majority in this municipality, we would have an illegal tender that would have been approved in this municipality with vast consequences for the residents of Tshwane. And that is why so many people have decided that giving single parties jurisdiction and domain to do whatever they like cannot continue in South Africa, and why multi-party coalition has to be the future. Because in multi-party coalition, we must hold each other to account. And on this occasion, it might well be ActionSA holding the DA to account. Next week, it might be the DA holding us to account. It is healthy. It is healthy to have checks and balances that can prevent the abuse of power that has been so prolific across South Africa for so many years. I think with those introductory remarks, I will hand over to my colleague Bongani Baloyi, an individual who has been in local government and has set the standard in local government for a very long time. And he can speak factually to some of the problems about this process and why ActionSA took the position that we did. Thank you very much.
Good morning, and thank you to our National Chair and yourselves for being present here today as we clarify our position and also map out what the way forward is going to be insofar as dealing with the issue of Mayor Randall Williams. If all of us remember, Lisilo was a mystical character who would vanish and then come back and vanish and come back. So as we are gathered here, ActionSA has taken a fundamental position on the basis of a principle. That ensures that we support and protect good governance as a city and as a coalition partner. So According to our understanding, the issue emanates as follows. The mayor meets with, or allegedly the mayor meets with a service provider who gives a proposal saying we have got this intention and this is who we are. We want to deliver the following product to the city of Tshwane. And the mayor is persuaded, allegedly. And as they persuade him, he then takes it upon himself to take this proposal document to the city's administration. And when he interacts with the city administration, he does not say, here's a proposal that I received, apply your mind, acting city manager, and then come back and advise. He doesn't say that. He says, here is a proposal I've received. City manager, I am directing you to appoint these people through an unsolicited bid process. There starts the first challenge. Because the MFMA in the Systems Act is very clear about the role of councillors in procurement. There is no space for anybody, if you're a public representative, to have a direct say in procurement, to the point where you even say in a recording that all of us have heard, that I am the executive mayor, I carry the executive authority of this municipality, and I make strategic decisions, and one of those strategic decisions I'm making is that this service provider is the one you are going to appoint through an unsolicited bid tender process. So now he has ventured into the domain of administration, directly interfering into the administration, which is illegal. It's something that we can't be part of as ActionSA. So now that we understand better why and the centrality of the mayor's office himself and his chief of staff in this procurement process, whilst at that stage we weren't aware of that, we were asking matters of substance about the process. That's why we lodged a dispute. So we lodged the dispute because they can't sufficiently respond to the following questions. One, does this satisfy the MFMA section 113 subsection 2 of the MFMA with the following criteria? The proposal as presented is an unsolicited bid, yet there is no, the fact that, do we believe that this is the only sole provider of this type of technology? No one can agree positively to that, because in such an energy space where there's new innovations every day, how can such one service provider, which has an aged type of technology and systems, nothing new, but they are preferred? The second part is that the process has been driven in inappropriate levels of involvement. The mayor's office is driving this. It's the mayor and his chief of staff. And it's unclear whether the service provider has a NESA license or will meet the NESA accreditation as well. So the mayor's office have put themselves in the center of procurement. And this is one part that the DA can't run away from. They can accuse us of being led by a party with a leader who has a high ego, and that's why we are doing these things, but they can't run away from answering the questions. Why did the mayor take this proposal and instruct the acting city manager to appoint these people? Why did the mayor insist on a process of procurement which is an unsolicited bid? And in the recording that has empowered all of us now, there are officials there who are warning the mayor. One who says, Mr. Mayor, you're going to have political risk. How can we tie the city to a 30-year contract, and the power that you're going to sell from this is going to be much more expensive? Now, the city officials are telling the mayor, you can't proceed this way because you're going to lock the city of Tshwane for 30 years in a contract which is going to be expensive, ultimately affecting the residents of the city who must buy this power that the city will buy from this producer and on-sell to residents. So residents are going to be in a worse off situation, understanding the difficulties of the residents of Tshwane. Following that, the mayor ignores these. And the COO is very clear in this recording, warning the mayor again. But equally conceding, because he can feel the pressure that the mayor is exerting on all of them, because the mayor has executive authority and he's making an executive strategic decision. Whether you like it or not, you are going to do as he says. Now, this is a man who thinks he is the institution. This is a man who thinks He is the law unto himself. He is not governed by the MFMA
Coalition.
or coalition agreement. So there's many questions that you need to assist us in getting the responses. Why is it that while there's a dispute within the coalition structure, the mayor calls an urgent special council meeting to deal with an issue where there's dispute? Part of the reason the mayor followed this route is because the mayor has been engaging directly the EFF and engaging directly the ANC to solicit their support, and was under the impression, more specifically, that the ANC is going to support him. This is validated by the comments the mayor said to our councillors in a joint coalition meeting, where he says this is going to happen whether you like it or you don't, with or without you, we are going to move ahead. So the DA has framed this narrative that whenever we agree with the EFF on matters of principle, wrong is wrong. Whether the EFF says it or whether we say it, what is wrong, we must deal with it. And they try and link us to them and create this fear-mongering thing that they do. In Watuguza, the DA said you can't negotiate with people who are outside of the coalition agreement and solicit their support. But here in Tshwane, the mayor actively engages ANC and EFF to persuade them and solicit support on council items. And the DA finds nothing wrong there. So when the mayor arrived in council, he realized he does not have the numbers. That the people he was weighing his support on had actually turned around and decided not to support the item. We as ActionSA propose amendments to the report the mayor had put on the table, and this is why he withdrew the item. We propose amendment number 1, that we reject the item. Number 2, that there must be a public bid process involving everybody within the energy space for them to compete. Number 3 was the problematic recommendation, where we recommended that the mayor must be investigated. The mayor and his chief of staff must be investigated in the role they are playing in the procurement of the city. This is the point where the mayor decided to withdraw the report. So whatever the DA can say, we are committed to this coalition. We are very happy in this coalition. We don't have a coalition issue. We've got a Randall Williams-Lisilo issue. That's where our problem is. And we're not going to be clubbed together in issues of corruption that undermine this coalition. And we're insisting that this is wrong. The mayor has contravened the MFMA, the Systems Act, by instructing officials in this recording that we all have that you shall, you must, because I have taken a decision. And we can't be party to that. So from where we stand, the coalition is stable. Our problem is just one who is acting in an illegal manner, and we're going to deal with that. And later, our chairperson is going to announce the steps that we'll be taking to address this part. I think I've covered my part insofar as the governance issue, because this is a serious governance breach. If one person has the right to direct officials how a procurement must happen, why this one and not others? Why not open the system up? Our position is clear as ActionSA. We support a power mix everywhere, which means integrate IPPs and integrate various players who are going to deliver electricity and ensure that the cities remain resilient and guarantee power supply. There's no issue around that. The issue is when one individual says, this one must do it, and not the others, and compete in a fair, transparent, and competitive bid. 26 billion rand is a lot of money. To tie city residents to a contract for 30 years is unjust when the procurement process has not been the legally sound, correct one. In fact, the process he should have embarked on is a triple P. This is where even his chief of staff in the recording concedes that what they are doing is adventurism. They want to cross the mark and hoping that no one contends or challenges it. And we've got evidence that our chairperson will speak to that implicate the mayor's office directly. What you have heard, there's even more written documents that implicate the mayor's office directly in this process. Chairman, I think I'll pass over to our regional chair just to speak about also the dynamics that he has picked up. Maybe I'll move across this side from locally.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think we need to start by appreciating the citizens of Tshwane who, after the local government elections, when the results were clear that we didn't get a majority in the city, they advised us to enter into a coalition. And it was a process that we involved the citizens of the city, and they are the ones who actually got us into this coalition. So it's clear that if that didn't happen, we would not be in this coalition, and the city would be in trouble as we speak right now, because this kind of things would have just went through, because this matter was brought to us by our caucus, and they raised issues with this matter. Firstly, let us address this issue. As ActionSA Tshwane, we are not against mixed energy or green energy. We are not against that. We are against what is being shoved down our throats and down the throats of the citizens when the mayor brought a service provider who clearly is not the sole provider of mixed energy that we have in South Africa. So that is the issue that we have, because this looks very illegal from our point of view. And it's a matter that we couldn't support. So when this was brought to our attention and we tried to address it, obviously through the joint caucuses, we were given an attitude by the mayor and the DA of this issue will go through whether you support us or not. So we'll get support from other parties. That's exactly what the mayor said. And we're given that attitude. So, which is why we took this to the national leadership of the coalition to address this matter, because this is the attitude that we received here on the ground. What's very interesting is that on Tuesday, as this special sitting was sitting, we actually received messages of support from the councillors of the DA. Councillors from the DA came to us and told us not to let this issue go, because they are not in support of this issue. Obviously, they will not be able to vote against their leader, who is the mayor, but they actually needed us to push this matter to ensure that we do not give support to this issue and to ensure that this thing does not go through. So we have a number of councillors in the DA who care about good governance, who also care about the citizens of Tshwane, who unfortunately find themselves being tied to the DA, and they cannot come out in public not to support this report by the mayor. But they gave us messages of support, and they encouraged us to push through with this matter. Also, from within the coalition government partners, the parties that are in coalition with us, we have it on good authority that had this matter gone through to a vote, they were going to vote against this report, because the recording that was played, I mean, in the recording it's clear, you have an official who's advising the mayor, who's actually even very emotional, and saying, Mayor, we cannot proceed with this matter because there are issues here. So when that recording was given to different political parties, those parties that are with us in the coalition actually came out and said, we are not going to support this report. So had this thing went through and was not withdrawn, they were not going to vote for this report. So this is the situation that we are in now. As coalition partners, there's parties that are not coming out publicly for reasons known to them. But they have said to us that you have our support, we will not vote for this thing because it doesn't make sense. And it's very sad and it's very pedestrian that this will now just be reduced to an ego of our president, Mr. Mashaba. It's very sad. This is a 23 billion project here, which was bound to fail anyway. And you cannot reduce 23 billion to an ego of an individual. It's very sad that the DA is taking us there, but we are clear as ActionSA to say, if these issues are handled properly, if the issue of mixed energy and green energy is handled properly, we'll support this matter, but not the way that it was done by the mayor, not this thing that has been pushed by the mayor of this one supplier that is paraded as being the sole supplier, because that supplier is obviously not the sole supplier. The same projects are happening in Cape Town, and it's surprising. The DA should know if there's a project that is happening in Cape Town, the DA should be the first to know about those kind of projects, so they know that there are other suppliers that can deal with this matter. These people are not the sole supplier. So that is what, as ActionSA Tshwane, we are against, and we are definitely not supporting this amazingly corrupt-looking process that is happening here. By the ghost mayor, Lisilo Randalls. Yeah, we have a new term now, Lisilo. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, just give me a second to move these back. Thank you. Tell you, I think I managed that successfully. I hope I did anyway. I think we've gotten to the point now where the important question that needs to be answered is, so what now? And I understand that's the question that many of you have come to hear the answer to. And we want to make something known completely unequivocally. And any suspicion to the contrary is just a lack of knowledge of ActionSA. Is that ActionSA is 100% committed to this multi-party coalition. Let me say that again. We are 100% committed to this multi-party coalition. If anyone would ever think that ActionSA would do anything to remove coalitions, then they just don't know us. And they've forgotten how these coalitions came into existence. When coalition negotiations were collapsed by the DA 48 hours before the inaugural council meetings, it was ActionSA that got together with political parties across the board and put DA mayors into government against their will. We're not going to collapse coalitions because the residents of these municipalities have spoken. They want coalitions. Whatever hardships we endure within the coalition, we will deal with within the coalition. But we're not going to subject the residents of Tshwane to collapsing governments, and we're not going to subject them to ANC return to government. ActionSA is clear. If you want to look, please see in our constitution. We are very clear. We exist to remove the ANC from government and put in place alternatives. We will never let that happen. But as Bongani has correctly said, we do not have a coalition. We do not have a problem with a coalition in Tshwane. We have a problem with the mayor of Tshwane. And what we will now do is we will collect the evidence that is before us, and we will ensure that that evidence is provided to the appropriate law enforcement authorities, to the public protector, to National Treasury, and to every organ of state responsible for looking at these particular matters. And we will do so openly and without any delay. And what we will then do is raise the question of whether or not ActionSA can continue to support Randall Williams as the mayor of Tshwane. And I want us to draw that distinction. We are fully in support of the multi-party coalition, but the question that needs to be answered is whether or not we can continue to support Randall Williams as the mayor of Tshwane. And that must be answered through an appropriate investigation and through the multi-party coalition. And we will ensure that these matters are looked into and that a multi-party coalition decision is made in these particular regards. But it is intolerable to have a scenario where an individual can trample a coalition agreement and subject all political parties to illegality in terms of how the city of Tshwane is operated, and we all bear the brunt of that particular load. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we find ourselves. We need to be unambiguous in our perspective that as coalition partners, we will hold each other to account. And when there's wrongdoing, we will act. Wrongdoing doesn't have a political orientation. Wrongdoing is wrongdoing. And we will act in defense of the residents of this municipality, and we will act in the defense of coalitions. Because ultimately, ActionSA committed to these coalitions in service of these residents, but also in service to the notion that in 2024, multi-party coalitions will take over across South Africa. If you look at this province, the ANC came down to the mid-30s in the last election. If anyone doubts that multi-party coalition is the future of South Africa, you just need to look at these numbers. But for voters and residents to feel confident that these coalitions can serve them, they need to see parties that are willing to...
We will open up for questions and answers. If you could just raise your hand and I will signal to you, and you can just give me the your name and the media house from who you're representing and to whom the question will be directed. I see a hand from yourself.
Can you please just tell us what is happening at the national coalition level with regard to the dispute?
Thank you. Going to take a few more, sir.
Any more questions? Offense?
Thank you very much. Offense from SABC News. I just wanted to find out what processes are going to unfold until you establish as to whether you still have the confidence in Lando or not, or whether you support it or otherwise.
I'll take one more question. Govan, I saw your hand.
Thank you so much. My name is Govan Whittles from ENCA. What was the date that was decided by the National Dispute Resolution Committee? You guys said you were working on a date when that special council was convened. What date did you get? Was there any decision taken by national coalitions on this, national coalition leaders on this 26 billion rand project? Other question is, why is ActionSA asking whether it still supports Randall Williams when it's clear that you no longer don't? What kind of outcome you looking for from an investigation that would help you decide whether you support him or not? Why are you not just calling for him to step down as the mayor? It's clear that you don't support him anymore. And then the regional chairperson of Tshwane said what appeared to be a corrupt-looking process. I wanted to get your definitive view here. You believe this is corruption? Who is the service provider? Why do you think the mayor is pushing so hard for it?
Thank you very much. So in responding to the questions that I think I can, the national coalition structures have not met yet to determine their position on the dispute that ActionSA has lodged. We lodged our first complaint on the 2nd of August, and that complaint required the meeting of what is called the Coalition Oversight Group. It's the most senior structure of the multi-party coalition. Political parties were asked to engage their leaders to determine a date in which their leaders would be available. A date has not yet been secured. When the special council meeting for the 16th of August was communicated, an agenda was circulated. When that agenda was circulated, we wrote again to the National Coalition expressing these things, and I see that post the meeting of the Tshwane Council on the 16th of August, there has been communication in the multi-party coalition to urgently address a meeting that is required. And we await that date eagerly, and it is necessary that this committee sits at the earliest possible opportunity so that these matters can be ventilated in full. I think that might be a helpful segue into Govan's point, if I may, and that is to say that ActionSA must be extraordinarily careful that we do not proceed to act with the same unilateral arrogance that we are objecting to in this process. So we have objected to a single political party coming and saying this will happen with or without you. And what kind of coalition partner would we be if we returned the favor and returned back saying this is going to happen now with or without you? As a coalition partner, we need to live up to the things that we hold other people to account for. And that is why we will take our concerns to the multi-party coalition. And I don't know what the outcome of that process will be, and I haven't canvassed the views of the other party, because we are very clear on what we believe, and you are right about that. We have beliefs that we are very concerned about. But the entire process from day one, which we have requested, was geared towards saying, this is what we are seeing, tell us what we are missing, tell us what is wrong about what we are assuming here. And because that process has never happened, we are forced to believe that our concerns are real. And that is the position in which we found ourselves. But as a committed multi-party coalition member, we will go to that body and we will raise our concerns. We will put forward our position. But ultimately, we will do so with an open mind. I see the question from offence here. The process unfolds as we determine the future. Right. So, as things stand, we await the meeting of the National Coalition structure on this particular issue. And we hope to see the DA and other parties commit to the earliest possible date, because we have to all understand that any uncertainty is bad for coalitions and it's bad for the residents. ActionSA has availed itself to say we will meet any time, any place, because we are committed to this multi-party coalition. We need to see that on the other side, because we have operated within this coalition agreement from the first moment in this process until now, and we will continue to do so. A date has not yet been determined, so when you ask what will happen in the interim, ActionSA will continue to be a coalition partner in every way, which we are. So if a council meeting is called tomorrow and business is brought before the coalition that is in service of the residents of Tshwane, that is legal, that is consistent with the values of our coalition agreement, we will support it. And if business is brought that does not live up to that standard, we will reject it. And if this particular item comes back to council, we will reject it again, until such time as the National Coalition has developed its position on this particular issue. Thank you. Please.
Thank you very much.
Sorry,
Antoinette?
Sam?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I think that there's one part we really want to add a lot of emphasis on, which is over and above the steps we are going to take after this. There's also one important step that council itself has to do, which is to launch an investigation, these investigations into the mayor and the mayor's chief of staff. The difficulty is that once that council process embarks, the mayor works with this individual every day, who are in the recording advising against the mayor. Now, these individuals and officials of the city will go and deposit their views. Now, the question for all of us to ask is, are they going to be able to do so in an environment where they don't feel threatened? Because they interact every day with the executive mayor of Tshwane and his chief of staff. So I think the next council in Tshwane is going to be a very difficult council for the mayor, because one council there will have to take a resolution to investigate the mayor. And as you investigate the mayor, these are people that the mayor works with every single day. Imagine the working environment of these city officials who warned the mayor, now must go and testify against the mayor as they work together. But that's a decision council must ventilate. So that's another process, a very important process in what is going to happen. Thank you.
Yes? And Antoinette?
It's Carlota Modise from Eyewitness News. I'm just looking for timelines, please, just on the you approaching the Office of the Public Protector and a number of other offices that you've spoken to. Is this a process that you're going to be starting immediately? And could you just also clarify, so what are you prioritizing? Are you approaching the Public Protector's office first? And how are you going about it?
Anto?
Just give us a bit of context to that statement of the mayor to coalition party councillors that this will happen whether you support it or not. At which event was it? Who were present? Just
Govind?
Thank you. I have a question that's also related to that. We have a member of the mayoral committee right here, Mr. Abel Tau. I'd like to ask Mr. Tau, what happened at that MACO where the report was tabled for the first time? And then I understand there was also a MACO yesterday? Yes. Since then, what's been happening? And then, you've said that the mayor went in his individual capacity to go lobby the ANC and the EFF. Very serious allegation. Do you have any evidence of that? What are the implications of that on the coalition? And then my final question, more overarching to the Gauteng chair, Mr. Beloy. we've seen the DA statements about some of the councillors in the city of Johannesburg as well. We've seen what's happening in Ekurhuleni. A lot of attention is on the coalition in Gauteng. How would you describe what's happening currently? Is it a threat to the coalition, or is this individuals that are fighting? Or how should the public perceive what appears to be instability in the three coalitions in Gauteng? Thank you.
You want to start with? Yeah. Let's come this side. By all means. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, Bongani. No problem. Here's musical chairs.
We'll allow short people to start first.
Thank you very much, Governor, and good morning once again. Look, from my side, yes, I am a member of the mayoral committee. And in the mayoral committee in question, in particular, it was on the 20th of July. This came in as a late report, unfortunately. And you just know immediately that you've got issues when you get late reports like those. We poked holes because we've got competent members of the mayoral committee who are members of ActionSA. Three of us, together with Andre Leroux and MMC De Brain, I'd actually caught wind, and we really vehemently warned the mayor, equal to what these officials had said. As much as, if you look at the MFMA, equal to that, he then wanted to pass this on as an unsolicited investment proposal that aligns to the practice note 11 from Treasury. And even then, we demonstrated to him that it still does not meet the master of that. In that meeting, that's where he said this will go through whether we support it or not. It's actually on record that the three MMCs of ActionSA have voted against this item, and we registered in that meeting that we are not supporting this item to go to council. But obviously, it's 3 out of 10, which the 7 others would then support, and then he carried through that majority to council. But I can tell you now that equally, even as it went through to council, a joint caucus, ActionSA, actually raised vehemently these issues that we don't believe in. And it's not rocket science. When you are a party that believes in an open market where competitiveness leads to better benefits for residents, then it becomes a no-brainer to say you're not going to take your friends from the bar somewhere. I think the president always says that we don't meet in a Shebin somewhere in Saxon World and hedge deals for the residents. Those should be done in chambers that are reserved for it, and we did warn the mayor around this issue. So we do think that ActionSA, both as a caucus and the members of mayoral committee, have been very clear based on the principles that we believe in. We are for a free market economy, and therefore this does not resemble the beliefs that we believe in. I think I've answered that.
Yeah, thank you.
You think you'll be reshuffled?
Well, we are not for positions, unfortunately. In fact, we understand that we are there to serve. So if we are not there, we would have done our best until today. But like my provincial chair said, we have a Randall problem in the city of Tshwane. There is one that he was forced to pull back again an unsolicited proposal for a hospital in Hammanskraal, where he brought his friends, and they've already hitched this thing that they're going to build a private hospital, and we put the brakes on it in Mako as well. So he has been going through these things of trying to get things through that are really, really dodgy. And unfortunately, when we are still there, whether it's Abelta or any other member of the 19 strong caucus members of ActionSA, you can rest assured that whoever it is in that Mako, these things will not sift through the cracks.
Thank you. Opa, can we take your question on the...
Sorry, Abel?
Did I? Oh, my...
Sorry.
Marlon Mousaoui from Newsroom Africa.
Yes.
So the situation still remains that the energy crisis and other kind of issues that you just said. You said this is not the first time that Mr. Williams has tried to push through any proposals that weren't discussed within the coalition structures or weren't approved. With these challenges facing the city of Tshwane, as urgent as they are, what is ActionSA doing? Are you bringing through proposals yourselves that should have been discussed instead of perhaps being seen as being reactive to the, what you call maverick kind of actions of Mr. Williams? Have you, from your side, been putting through proactively suggestions to try and alleviate and find solutions to these problems?
Yes, we have. I think from day one, we as ActionSA, both in the MACO and even through coalition structures, we have been coming through with ideas to say, look, one of the things that's very, very imperative, I think you would understand that this is a new term of office, and I think there is a hangover from the previous term, probably from this mayor. And we have continually said, I mean, as Tshwane, what you would have seen happen in Johannesburg is that they've had an indaba. Now, we are not alien to one another. These are ideas that you put to the table. They've had an energy indaba, and we've come through and said, Mayor, you can obviously, learn from our counterparts from the different cities that we run together. Have an energy indaba if you want to talk energy crisis, then have a blueprint on how this city will be energy independent, energy sufficient, and energy efficient, where we are able to then deal with our energy issues. I mean, you cannot thumbsuck that this is a panacea to the problems of Tshwane. In fact, what is fundamentally flawed with this process is that it is not backed by any feasibility study that seeks to suggest that it is going to resolve our problems. In fact, the officials in the recording are saying it's going to exacerbate the problems because push up the cost of energy in Tshwane, but equally as well, if you look at that, at the time of this, one of the things that we had a fundamental problem with was that IPPs could only produce 100 megawatts of power at the time when this thing, he tried to push it through until the president came with the new regulations. And then these power stations are producing 840 megawatts. What do you do with the 740 megawatts of power that's there? There were no answers. There's no plan, except that the mayor wants to push this thing through and hope to God that it works out for him or whoever those people are.
If you don't mind, I'd also like to respond to that question from a national coalition perspective, because, it's obviously very good to hear the work that is being done by our representatives in the coalition in Tshwane. But from a national coalition perspective, ActionSA has championed the issue of transversal outcomes, which is to say, Gauteng is the only three metros that share Leni. Imagine when you have these three metros come together and develop a plan, and even if those plans are individually owned and financed and developed, but they harness the collective bargaining power in local government of these three metros, and they harness the legal power and the financial might of these three metros. And in our view, this is the kind of approach we need to be taking to an energy issue, because ultimately it will result in a better outcome for the residents of these three metros, who are less concerned about where the boundary is drawn in the municipality and more concerned that their electricity is going off. ActionSA has been driving this issue from day one. It is a priority issue. And no multi-party coalition can succeed unless they answer this question, because it is the most pressing problem, arguably, to businesses and people alike in Gauteng.
Thank you, guys. Yes?
Thank you. I'm Shenyongo in the Security sector. I just want to know from Mr. Tau that this collusion thing that you see that you don't support the mayor about, is it the one that makes you, the reason why you want to come out, is it because you make a promise to security officers that you're going to in-source, but you never did that? So is it the reason why, the one good reason, that you are the one who make us to vote for you guys as a ActionSA, but you never keep that promise, and it's already a year?
Sorry, I think.
Sorry, the press conference today is centered on this particular matter.
It is all about the collusion. The reason why you're coming out, is it the reason why?
No, I think I'll respond to that. Thank you. And you are most welcome to be here. And thank you for raising your question. And even if it's not the reason why we're here, let us recognize that it's an important issue. Nonetheless, the coalition, we need in this agreement, in writing, that we stand behind insourcing, where there's a feasibility study that demonstrates. We have committed ourselves to this process. Unfortunately, we do not have sole control of these coalitions, and we are working within the coalition to make sure that this issue is delivered. And it is through ActionSA's efforts that insourcing that has taken place so far has, and we share your view that it has been too slow. But what we can commit to is that we are the party that is pushing for this, and we are the party that has done so from day one in each of the three metros.
Can I respond to some of these things?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because we've allowed the city now to deal with a number of challenges they're dealing with to ensure that in the next financial year, that will start soon, we factor in the absorption of the balance of the other members of the city. And they've raised some key things of when you absorb, you must be able to train adequately, equip adequately, give resources so they can, and to communicate that. I think the issue here, and to communicate that. I think the issue here is that we've not been good in communicating this. And we've not been proactive in engaging you and sharing with you that we're actually fighting and still committed to the cause. But rest assured, that's what we're doing. The other issue I want to speak to is the governance issue. And I want to caution journalists and the residents of Tshwane to not be naive. I can really sense that you are sympathetic to the cause of this noble gentleman trying to resolve the issues of electricity. And then there are these ones who appear to be rascals who don't want to support this gentleman, this man of God. Shame. This is local government. Things don't work that way. There's rules, there's a Systems Act, MFMA, there's structure. You don't just wake up today and of Triple P, where comrades were chowing money meant to protect people under emergency procurement. So it's not too long ago where these things have happened and you've forgotten conveniently these things. So here, there's no room for a mayor to be a maverick, to operate outside of the laws that govern and protect local government. It doesn't happen that way. One, the mayor must put it in the IDP, ensure that there's a finance behind it, and then there's a strategy followed by a structure, followed by implementation. That's how these things happen. It's not an overnight thing where a maverick does things. So this sympathy for a man who's trying to solve issues is wrong. We must judge him in that standard of a public representative who saw, when he was elected in office, took an oath of office to protect and defend all the laws of the republic, and including the municipality. So transgressing that is a difficulty. So there mustn't be this misplaced sympathy. Then the issue of the tensions in coalitions. Where I sit, I see growth pains. So we are building the institution of coalition in Gauteng. And as we are building the institution of coalition, we are also ingraining institutional memory to all of us. How do you deal with this problem? How do you deal with that problem? What remains a constant frustration is when DA mayors believe they've got majority. Instead of engaging proactively and resolving the strategic issues and aligning with all of us, they want to surprise us and drag us forcefully because they believe they are the next best thing after toilet paper. So they want to move all of us in that one direction. So now Mayor Lisilo has surfaced. When was the last time you journalists saw Mayor Lisilo in public? And you don't ask what is the problem. He surfaces now to persuade us to do wrong things. And then he's going to disappear again. And then come back with another wrong thing. So you're not asking the right questions. You must go to the office and ask, why is the mayor not making public appearances? And then you'll find out the real thing, what's happening there. So we see growth pains. We are managing the coalition. We are also dealing with the issues that as they are rising. And if there's genuine issues where we transgress, we deal with it and we factor in and we move on. But we are building this institution.
Parties were brought in, and the purpose of bringing them in was to brief them on this report going to council and to solicit their support for the item in council. Now, I'm certain, and I don't, contrary to popular opinion, speak with the ANC and EFF on these matters, but I'm certain that were you as journalists to approach them, they would confirm that meeting taking place and the purpose of that meeting. But at the end of the day, the point that needs to be made, that is a particularly important point, is that you have coalition negotiations being collapsed in KZN and Kwadukuza, where a provision is put in place for a minority coalition that no person may go and solicit the support of a party outside of the coalition arrangement in a place where you don't have a majority. And here, where you have a majority coalition, but a party won't allow you to do something because they believe it's wrong, there's an approach to those two parties to get their support. It's a demonstration of the level of hypocrisy that is going on here in the way in which these things are handled. The other thing that I want to put forward to everyone present here, to place this entire matter into perspective, is what would have happened if this was an ANC government that made this proposal to council? And what would an organization like the DA be saying in opposition about this proposal? And if you answer that question, you can understand why it is we have such a profound problem with the double standard.
Thank you so much, guys. Oh, another question. Yes.
Phumzile Mlangeni, SABC Radio.
Hi.
What is the view on how the city is run? I mean, recently we saw the AG flag not following the processes has contributed to how the city is doing right now, because we know that they are struggling to pay service providers, basically.
Colleague said some hangover issues from the previous term of office. I mean, to give you an example, on the very same council agenda, going to council, is an investigation about the award of the tender to the joint venture owned by Edward Sodi in the Rooival wastewater treatment matter. That there are those challenges. And there's no doubt that there are challenges generally and specifically across the board and the City of Tshwane when it comes to financial positions. And I mean, that's been a legacy that comes as well from the past. It also comes from on good ideas as to how we govern these municipalities. But it actually is in collaborating with one another and working with one another as partners that we will get things done. Now, I want to tell you, I worked in a multi-party coalition in the city of Johannesburg for 3 years. And we had political parties that had 104 seats, and we had political parties that had 1 seat. And good ideas came from the parties with 1 seat, as much as they came from the party with 104 seats. But it requires leadership that recognizes that we're not going to push things through against the will of everyone. It requires leadership to sit down and develop solutions to these very complex problems in which the municipality finds itself. And appreciating fully that I'm only sharing part of the answer to your question, perhaps I could invite any of my colleagues with a better understanding of Tshwane to assist.
Look, I think from the province's side, we've noted the performance of the city. The financial year, so when you look at the target on the predetermined objective against the actual target, I think we're at 55%, which indicates that the city in a financial year was only able to achieve 55% of its target. It may also be contributed and assisted by the fact of the financial situation of the city, linked to some historical issues, COVID exacerbated, but before that, the city was bleeding money, left, right, and center to corruption. Now, the public protectors and the AG speaks to the level of fruitless, irregular, and unauthorized expenditure in the city. So you can clearly see that the city has been a piggy bank for cabals. So we are wrestling now in the mud with those cabals to rescue the city. So there are steps that points towards stabilization of the city. One is the appointment of a city manager. Number two, the second layer of senior management needs to be appointed because the contracts are coming to an end. The CFO, COO, and various other positions will be filled with the new administration. And the third part is to close the holes at supply chain, because that's where the things are happening at supply chain. But we also suspect that things like that can only happen in an institution enabled by politicians. So when there's matters like this, these matters must be dealt with ruthlessly to remove those thorns. So from where we stand, we'll give an adequate response into the performance of the city, having fully judged the first quarter performance of the current financial year, measures against the past financial year. So now there's a bench line that we'll be looking back at and saying, but are we performing? Is things improving? And we genuinely believe by the end of the financial year, with a new executive team in the City of Tshwane at the administrative level, we'll start to see a new culture emerge and better performance and accountability and consequence management. Now, those are the things. So it won't happen immediately, but we'll sit here that we're able to get to the ground quickly and meet the issues and ensure that there's sufficient performance evaluation and monitoring on our MMCs and ensuring that we deliver. So there is some signs of progress. We must just sustain and stabilize and be consistent and replicate and protect and improve the governance of the institution. I think that will deliver consistent results.
Can I suggest, Sam, there was a question asked by Antoinette a very long time ago. She's been extremely patient. Mark was made that we do not need ActionSA to get this done, or whatever it was.
By the mayor. So let me clarify that. We are not accusing the mayor of corruption yet. The forensic report that will be happening in council will tell us that. What we are accusing the mayor of is interference in work that was supposed to be done by officials, not by the mayor. So that is what we are accusing the mayor of. The push by the mayor that is happening is the one that smacks of corruption. But we are not saying the mayor is corrupt. We'll see from that report whether the mayor is indeed corrupt. So I just wanted to clarify that. Now there's an issue of the context in which we were told, the caucus was told that we'll do this with or without you. So it happened in Meiko. It also happened in Joint Caucus when our caucus raised these issues and said, but we cannot proceed with this. And they were told by them, because if in the coalition we are not supporting that, but the mayor is saying this thing will go through, then it means there's support from outside of the coalition. Now,
And the Joint Caucus on Monday, the 26th of July.
Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. I know it's been long, but thank you for joining us. And if you want any one-on-one interviews, please let myself or Nkene here in the front know. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tomorrow. We're going tomorrow.
So, can I ask you something about no other